Allow me to unveil a mystery hidden within ancient scrolls, carefully guarded from most. This is the truth about Christ consciousness, that power that allowed Jesus to transcend human limitations and comprehend divine wisdom. And here's what they never wanted you to know. This power resides within you too. Miss even a moment and you will remain unaware, not realizing the divine energy that already lives within you, stemming from sacred teachings. So we will delve into the depths of Christ consciousness, Kundalini energy, and pineal gland activation, especially through the lens of esoteric wisdom, Gnostic texts, and ancient spiritual traditions. What exactly is Christ consciousness? For me, it is the highest state of divine unity, a complete awareness of one's true self as an embodiment of the divine source. It is not merely a theological concept, but a metaphysical and esoteric state of consciousness that Jesus Christ fully realized and demonstrated during his life on earth. It transcends traditional religions, encompassing universal spiritual principles, accessible to everyone. Imagine a moment when Christ consciousness becomes the awareness of the eternal I Am, presence within us. It is a state where one recognizes their divinity, fully aware of their connection to higher spiritual dimensions and embodying the qualities of compassion, unconditional love, and unity with all creation. Essentially, Christ consciousness is the realization of the divine spark that lives within every being, existing eternally, beyond time, space, and the material world. From the depths of ancient Gnostic teachings, I learned that Christ consciousness is often referred to as the Logos or Divine Word, a cosmic principle that brings order and wisdom to the universe. It is the divine mind that permeates all existence, and through which the soul can achieve gnosis, spiritual enlightenment. When one awakens to Christ consciousness, they align with this universal divine principle, transcending ego and duality. In its esoteric nature, according to esoteric Christianity, Christ consciousness represents a state of unity with the divine, a level of enlightenment that Jesus achieved not as an exception, but as an example for all humanity. The Essenes, a mystical Jewish community from whom Jesus is believed to have drawn significant spiritual knowledge, taught a path of inner purification and divine alignment that led to the attainment of this state of being. Their practices emphasized the importance of meditation, contemplation, and connecting with the inner light, a process that aligns closely with the awakening of Christ consciousness. How then does Christ consciousness aid in spiritual awakening? I believe it is the key to spiritual awakening, for it dissolves the illusion of separation. In our human experience, we often identify with the ego, a fragmented sense of self bound by fear, attachment, and a feeling of separateness from the divine and other beings. Christ consciousness pierces through this veil of illusion. Imagine Christ consciousness aligning one with the higher truth of unity, where all beings and all creation are expressions of the same divine source. In ancient Gnostic and esoteric teachings, the process of awakening is seen as the soul's journey back to the divine source, called the pleroma, the fullness of God in Gnostic terms. By cultivating Christ consciousness, I begin to transcend duality, moving beyond the perception of good and evil as opposites, recognizing that all experiences are essential for growth and enlightenment. It completely dissolves the ego. Christ consciousness eradicates the ego's hold over the mind, which is the source of fear, suffering, and attachment. Consider how an awakened individual begins to act not from personal desires, but from the higher will of the divine, as Jesus demonstrated. Through meditation, prayer, and contemplation, practices Jesus himself employed, we begin to open higher spiritual centers, allowing the divine light of Christ consciousness to flow through us, leading to greater compassion, clarity, and alignment with our spiritual purpose. What is Kundalini energy, and how does Christ consciousness aid in Kundalini awakening? I've come to understand that in ancient yogic and mystical traditions, Kundalini is a dormant divine energy coiled at the base of the spine, often symbolized as a serpent. This energy represents the life force that, and what happens when it awakens. It rises through the chakras, energy centers along the spine, leading to spiritual awakening, enlightenment, and divine union. The goal of Kundalini awakening is to reach the crown chakra, where divine consciousness fully manifests, allowing one to experience complete unity with the divine. When Kundalini energy awakens, it purifies the body, mind, and spirit, clearing blockages that hinder the flow of divine energy. The ascent of Kundalini is a process of transforming lower states of consciousness rooted in survival, fear, and attachment into higher spiritual awareness. What then is the connection between Christ consciousness and Kundalini awakening? I see that Christ consciousness acts as a guiding light in the Kundalini process. And here's how it works. If Kundalini is the dormant spiritual energy, then Christ consciousness is the divine intelligence that guides its ascent. By attaining Christ consciousness, Jesus and those who follow his path are able to safely and consciously awaken the Kundalini energy. Christ consciousness purifies the mind and heart, creating fertile ground for Kundalini's ascent without the hindrance of egoic fear or attachment. As Kundalini rises through the chakras, Christ consciousness ensures that one remains aligned with divine love and wisdom, allowing the process of spiritual transformation to unfold harmoniously. The energy of Christ consciousness perfectly aligns with the awakened Kundalini in the crown chakra, which corresponds to the state of. So we arrive at another key piece of the puzzle. Enlightenment, or samadhi, union with God in Hindu and yogic traditions. This union between Kundalini and Christ consciousness leads to the full realization of the divine self. What then is the pineal gland, and what is its connection to Christ consciousness? I've learned that the pineal gland is a small pinecone-shaped endocrine gland located in the center of the brain, often referred to as the third eye, or the seat of the soul in ancient mystical traditions. The pineal gland is considered a gateway to higher consciousness, enabling individuals to perceive spiritual realms, receive divine knowledge, and connect with the higher self. Pineal gland activation and Christ consciousness. I've come to understand that the activation of this gland is crucial for achieving. Consider what happens when this inner portal, Christ consciousness, is stimulated and activated. It enables one to transcend mundane materialistic perceptions and access higher spiritual dimensions. This is essential for the full embodiment of Christ consciousness, as one must move beyond the physical senses to comprehend the deeper truths of the soul. Esoteric function of the pineal gland. In ancient Egyptian spirituality, the pineal gland was symbolized by the Eye of Horus, representing higher insight and spiritual awareness. Jesus, through his deep meditative practices, fasts, and prayers, was able to fully activate his pineal gland, allowing him to receive divine visions and guidance directly from God. If you're starting to feel this ancient truth awaken within you, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and prepare for the journey of a lifetime, for we are only just beginning. How did Jesus come to know Christ consciousness and apply it in his journey? I believe Jesus' understanding of Christ consciousness was not something he was born with, but rather was attained through a profound spiritual path of initiation and learning. Ancient esoteric texts and Gnostic teachings indicate that Jesus spent his early years studying in secret schools in the East. These regions were known for their ancient spiritual teachings, especially concerning the nature of consciousness, the soul, and divine union. My research indicates there is evidence, particularly in esoteric writings and the Aquarian Gospel, that Jesus traveled to Egypt, where he studied in the Temple of Luxor and mastered ancient mystical arts, including how to awaken the pineal gland and activate divine consciousness. His time there may have introduced him to yogic teachings about Kundalini and how to raise one's spiritual energy to achieve enlightenment. Jesus applied the teachings of Christ consciousness through his acts of unconditional love, healing, and miracles. By connecting to the universal Christ energy, he was able to perform miracles, for these deeds were born not from his human self, but through his unity with the divine. His teachings, particularly in the Gnostic Gospels, emphasize the inner. The path to this truth begins with a transformation that leads to divine realization, prompting others to follow the same path of awakening. To understand how Jesus activated the pineal gland through Christ consciousness, we need to delve deep into ancient esoteric wisdom, mystical traditions, and the teachings attributed to Jesus. The pineal gland, often called the seat of the soul by figures like René Descartes, is located in the center of the brain and is considered a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds. Its activation allows one to access higher states of consciousness, including visions, spiritual insight, and a deeper connection to divine wisdom. In ancient spiritual traditions, the pineal gland, have found that this gland is often associated with the third eye, a powerful energy center in the body that connects us to higher dimensions of reality. While this gland regulates melatonin production, controlling sleep cycles, in esoteric teachings its function extends beyond the physical. It is regarded as a gateway to higher consciousness, enabling access to deeper spiritual truths. In Egyptian and Vedic spiritual traditions, the pineal gland is often symbolized by the Eye of Horus and the Ajna chakra, third eye, respectively. The awakening of this gland is believed to enable perception beyond ordinary reality, attunement to spiritual dimensions, experiencing divine visions, and achieving a state of unity with the universe. How did Jesus utilize this knowledge? He, like other spiritual masters, understood this, and worked on activating his own pineal gland throughout his journey to enlightenment. Christ consciousness is a term I use to describe the state of divine universal awareness that Jesus embodied. This state transcends ego, separateness, and material attachments, aligning one with a higher divine vibration. Christ consciousness is not merely a state of mind, but a transformative energy that allows one to access their divine nature and realize their connection to Source. Through Christ consciousness, Jesus was able to align his entire being, mind, body, and spirit, with this divine energy. As a result, he was able to awaken and activate the pineal gland, which enabled him to. This was not an instantaneous breakthrough, but rather the culmination of spiritual disciplines that Jesus practiced throughout his life to access universal knowledge, higher dimensions, and spiritual powers. These disciplines included meditation, prayer, energetic work, and a lifestyle that cultivated inner purity and alignment with the divine. Techniques Jesus used to activate the pineal gland. While Jesus's exact practices are not explicitly detailed in traditional biblical texts, we can infer from esoteric traditions and apocryphal gospels that Jesus likely employed a combination of the following techniques for pineal gland activation through Christ consciousness. These were meditation and prayer. Consider his retreats. Jesus spent long periods in meditation and prayer, often withdrawing to secluded places like the desert or mountains. This quiet time alone was crucial for Jesus to connect with his divine essence. Meditation is one of the primary methods for stimulating the pineal gland, as it allows the practitioner to turn inward and focus on higher levels of consciousness. In the stillness of deep meditation, the pineal gland is activated by focusing energy and awareness on the third eye region, located between the eyebrows. Jesus' prayer practice was not merely a supplicatory prayer, but a form of divine communion, where he aligned his energy with cosmic consciousness. Through this connection, he could access states of bliss, divine love, and unity. I've come to understand that these elevated spiritual states triggered the activation of the pineal gland, as they allowed energy to flow freely through the body, especially in the higher chakras. Kundalini energy awakening. While the term Kundalini is not directly associated with Jesus in traditional texts, the concept of Kundalini energy, a dormant spiritual energy residing at the base of the spine, parallels Jesus' spiritual awakening process. As Kundalini rises through the chakras, it eventually reaches the Ajna chakra, third eye, located in the same area as the pineal gland. Through the practice of Christ consciousness, Jesus likely worked with this energy, allowing it to ascend through his energy system. When Kundalini reaches the third eye, it stimulates the pineal gland opening. I've come to understand that this opens a gateway to divine perception. Fully awakened, this energy helps one experience unity with the divine, perceive spiritual truths, and access higher planes of consciousness. Breathing techniques are also profoundly important in many spiritual traditions for pineal gland activation. Deep rhythmic breathing helps deliver oxygen to the brain and calm the nervous system, allowing the practitioner to enter deep meditative states. Jesus' ability to perform miracles and transcend ordinary human limitations suggests to me that he mastered control over the life force energy, or what is called prana in yogic teachings and spiritus in Christian mysticism. By mastering his breath and focusing on the third eye region, Jesus was able to. Another key I discovered is the ability to direct energy to the pineal gland, stimulating its activation. In esoteric Christian traditions, Jesus' breathing practices were seen as a means of aligning with the Holy Spirit, the divine energy that animates all life. Jesus also fasted for extended periods, such as 40 days in the desert. Fasting is an ancient method for detoxifying the body and purifying the mind, which facilitates spiritual experiences. By fasting, Jesus likely removed physical impurities that could block the flow of his spiritual energy. A purified body, combined with focused intention, allows the pineal gland to function optimally. Fasting reduces external distractions. Imagine the power that comes from detaching from the material world, allowing one to turn inward and connect with their inner spiritual essence. Through fasting and purification, Jesus could facilitate the activation of the pineal gland, which opens the way to Christ consciousness. Jesus' transcendence through pineal gland activation. Through his deep commitment to Christ consciousness and the activation of his pineal gland, Jesus attained a supreme state of being, often referred to as divine illumination. In this state, he could transcend ordinary human limitations, perform miracles, and directly connect with God consciousness. His ability to heal the sick, raise the dead, and ultimately transcend death itself can be seen as evidence of his mastery. This mastery over the pineal gland, and his connection to divine energy. The pineal gland, activated through Christ consciousness, allowed Jesus to perceive the universe as a unified whole and understand the nature of life, death, and resurrection. His spiritual journey serves as a blueprint for me and for those seeking enlightenment, showing that pineal gland activation is a crucial step towards unlocking our own divine potential. Everything you've heard today, all this ancient wisdom, it has all led to this moment. The power of Christ consciousness is alive within you right now, waiting for you to awaken. If you are ready to delve deeper to unlock the divine energy within you, then join me on this journey. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and prepare to unveil the greatest spiritual secrets of our time. The truth is here, the time has come.